So let me just first introduce myself. Some of you have been my students only, so you already are aware of who I am. Those who are not, let me just say, my name is Ankur Sharma. I've done my PhD in International Relations from South Asian University. Apart from this, I've also taught political science at the university level. At Rouse, I actually teach IR in security and polity in GS. Apart from this, obviously, I teach PSIR. I've also been All India Rank 3 in UGC NET in IR and 54 in political science also in UGC. That is by and large the introduction that is required for PSIR. One of the first things which I want to talk about is a question that students have put up for me, and that is related to this aspect: development of effective answer writing skill and the regular class test. It is based on what the students have seen in my previous orientation also. So when I talk about the fact that there would be regular class tests, give and take, there would be 20 tests, which I'll check. You write the answers, you bring them to me, and I'll be the one checking them, and I will give you individual feedback based on how well you have written those answers. I have my own stages of answer writing. Those who have attended my classes are already aware of this. And hopefully, by the end of classes in January, you would be much better, effective answer writers in political science. In this, I want to talk about one separate thing, which is interlinkages. I had recently made a YouTube video based on which a lot of students ended up asking to me for elaboration on this particular aspect. How do you interlink different papers? Paper 1 of political science and paper 2 of political science, or different aspects of political science subject itself. And I want to talk about this through examples. Interlinkages in answer writing for political science PSIR. Recently, you would have heard of a particular news that has come up, is that the US Supreme Court has done away with race-based affirmative action. Race-based affirmative action. Colleges and universities within the US now would not be required to provide reservations or special assistance based on the color of your skin. This particular idea is related to what is known as affirmative action. This is within your syllabus also, specifically given within your syllabus under equality. Under paper 1, section 8, political theory, affirmative action is part of your syllabus. And that is why this particular news that has come, I think last month only, it becomes very relevant for those that are preparing for PSIR examination this year and also next year. And what has happened is that in the newspapers itself, you find that a lot of articles have been written on comparing the ideas of affirmative action that was there in the US with the ideas of affirmative action that is there in India. The US Supreme Court basically said that there is something known as the 14th Amendment there, and there's a special provision known as equal protection under law. That is there in the Indian Constitution under Article 14, right to equality, equal protection before law. And both of these are one of those aspects which would be interlinked, and using those concepts, you should be able to answer right in terms of 14th Amendment and how it has led to affirmative action or the removal of affirmative action based on race. And how under Article 14, right to equality within India, how it continues to be defended and by the Indian Supreme Court. The ideas of affirmative actions, particularly reservation. That is one comparison that would come up in all of it. Apart from this, we'll talk about what various thinkers have said on this. Baba Sahib Ambedkar, what he has said on this. We'll talk about what recently even Chief Justice of India, what's his name? Chandrachud. And he has also said that the idea, I'll tell you what it comes related to the fact that in India there's something called castelessness or the idea of casteless. And within the US, when the US Supreme Court did away with race-based reservation or race-based positive discrimination or race-based affirmative action in colleges and universities, they said that there should be race blindness. Race blindness. And this issue also comes in India as to whether should we have caste blindness or a casteless society, castelessness. And on that aspect, Chief Justice Chandrachud was giving a lecture known as the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Memorial Lecture only, and he said that the idea of castelessness or caste blindness is in itself an idea of privilege. It comes from the idea of privilege itself, whereby those that have not had caste discrimination against them, they can have the ideas of castelessness or caste blindness. There's a famous article by Professor Shinde also on this, which we'll talk about in. So this is one topic which would be interlinked as to what is happening in the US in terms of their 14th Amendment, equal protection before law, in relation to what is given under Indian Constitution, right to equality, again, equal protection before law, what their Chief Justice ended up saying, that there should be race blindness, and how the Indian Supreme Court has taken a very contrary view of this, that the idea of caste blindness or castelessness in itself is an act of privilege. And then we'll talk about various thinkers, including and especially Baba Saheb Ambedkar, on this topic. So this is how you interlink different aspects of the syllabus together. This is another topic which was on the Arctic Council. Now this particular article is there in the June edition of Focus also, which I have written on the Arctic Council, but it is from a GS perspective. And again, this particular topic falls under Paper 2, Section A, International Politics, Contemporary Global Concerns, specifically environment. Now what has happened? I'll give you a brief background and then you tell me how it would be interlinked to Indian foreign policy. The Arctic Council currently has been put on hold because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And the A7 members, like Norway and other, you can say, European countries within the Arctic Council have halted the working of the Arctic Council itself because of the actions that Russia undertook. In this, what has happened is that there are certain observer countries within the Arctic Council, India being one of them. There's also China, Singapore, Japan. And for us, for India or any of these observer countries, to undertake any form of projects within the Arctic, they require, you can say, a form of sponsorship or engagement with one of the permanent members of the Arctic Council. Now, because the Arctic Council is not working, new projects within the Arctic are not being moving forward. They're not being allowed to move forward. And therefore, India's work in terms of science and technology within the Arctic has or new projects within the Arctic has come to a halt. Now, if I ask you, is there any aspect of Indian foreign policy can you link it to? Something that Dr. Jaishankar has said in reference to Europe and Russia, Ukraine. You see, the European countries have stopped the working of the Arctic Council because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And because of which India and other countries cannot undertake projects to study climate change, the Arctic as a third pole, and various other science and tech projects which should have been ongoing. Any aspect? No, something that yes, Akashdeep has, Dr. Jaishankar ended up saying that Europe's problems are world's problem, but world's problem are not Europe's problem. And Europe should actually move away from this mindset. Now, what is the world problem? Yeah, basically they've not allowed the Arctic Council to work. Basically the European countries, Norway and Norway. And because of which the observer countries are not able to undertake new research. And what is the main crux of our research? Climate change. And what is the reason that they have not allowed the Arctic Council to work? Russia-Ukraine conflict. So what is happening is that Europe basically has done what? Yeah, but what actually have they done? They have prioritized their own problems of Russia-Ukraine conflict rather than looking at the world problems, which is climate change. And what would happen is if this question is asked in, let's say, paper 2, section A under international politics, you talk about what has happened in the Arctic Council, why it is not working, how it is impacting India, whatever India projects that are there. But one of the important aspects in terms of interlinkages, in terms of answer writing within political science or PSIR, is that you bring in the views of scholars. You bring in the views of concept and theories. And this is very important in international relations because the way that you improve your answers of IR is by bringing in various scholars who have said something on the topic, or by using theories like balance of power or other theories in reference to. And here you can bring in the idea of what Dr. Jaishankar, that in this particular, it is a reflection, it is a good example of Europe prioritizing its problems and overlooking what are the world's problems. And they expect the world to worry about the Russia-Ukraine conflict by not having the Arctic Council work there. So that is another way that you interlink different aspects of the paper. Now in your class, I would be teaching what is Dr. Jaishankar's views on Indian foreign policy. And this particular aspect, anyways, all of you are aware of because it was such a popular news. So you interlink this. That is one thing that I'll teach in class. See, I've always said to my students, answer writing is a skill. It has to be taught. It is not something you are born with or something you've learned answer writing, let's say in school, you've learned it in college, but in UPSC, that same skill is not the way it should be implemented. You have to write in the way that the UPSC expects you to the relevance of the question with interlinkage. And this is therefore would be taught in class. That is why I say I give 20 tests, which I'll check. And individually, I'll help you in improving your answer writing. Similarly, if you take a look at this particular, this is one of the YouTube short video I made on the Wagner Group and Arthashastra. And based on this, a lot of students asked me this particular question on how to focus more on interlinkages. How do you help with this in your PSIR class? And again, you see that the Wagner Group has been designated as a transnational criminal organization. Transnational actors is literally part of the syllabus under paper 2 section A international politics. It is literally part of the syllabus. And what had happened is that this Wagner Group is a form of private military company. It is a form of mercenary group. And they recently tried to undertake a coup against Vladimir Putin. Now, Chanakya within Arthashastra has said that mercenaries cannot be trusted. So you bring in the view of Chanakya and Kautilya, which would be taught to you in paper 1, and you link it to an answer of paper 2. Now, it does not mean that your complete answer of paper 2 has to have everything from paper 1. That is not what I'm trying. But have certain sections which are relevant for answer writing within. So you have a lot more interlinkages that can be happen. If you go back to the first question, or the first topic that we talked about, as to what is happening in the US itself in terms of affirmative action. You brought in the Constitution through Article 40. You brought in thinkers like Baba Sahib Ambedkar, which is under paper 1, section A. You've also brought in section B in terms of the Constitution. You also bringing in paper 2, section A, which is comparative politics. So what is going to happen that this answer would have a lot more interlinkages with the different aspects which you have learned in different parts of the paper. This is a skill which would be taught and improved upon within the class. I hope this particular aspect, the students which had asked for this specific issue, it is clear to them.